Thank you for joining us here on Thriving After Review Summit. I am Brooke Kekos, your host. I am here with Summer Bozohora, and she is a soulful mentor. She's also a best-selling author, and she has written she's the author of Soul Side Out, Universal Laws to Healing and Living Your Best Life. So I know that you do amazing work with healing people really from, past relationships and toxicity and things where things have come up within their relationships that have left them feeling lost, right? And we're really talking about today relationships as soul contracts. And I wanted to kind of lead us in with what exactly does that mean for the person that maybe has no idea, has never really kind of gone down this spiritual path and really needs to understand it.
Well, how I understand relationships as soul contracts came about as I lived my life and realized that every single experience I had, as horrific or terrible as some of them might have been, have given me some of the greatest gifts in my life and some of the greatest evolution that I've had. So I actually call all those most difficult, horrifying experiences or toxic relationships our greatest Jedi Master trainers for soul embodiment, because it's kind of like how diamonds are cured underneath the greatest pressure, um, and how we're asked to become clear about what our boundaries are, how people affect us, and how we can learn to speak our truth about what's going on in our body when we're interacting with other people, so that we can start to live authentic, healthy lives. Because a lot of the emotions that run through our body, through countless numbers of doctors and experience, know that disease, heart surgeries, autoimmune disorders, specifically, Gabor Mate talks about that, is really about how we are being people pleasers, especially women, um, to our partners, to people. And we often hide how we feel because we just haven't been taught how to express ourselves and to honor ourselves in a deep, deep way, which I believe goes back to our spiritual purpose here on the planet. Mhm.
I love that. Tell me a little bit, obviously you do this work, you embody this work. Tell me a little bit about your own experience, in that codependent survival relationship, just so that, this person that's listening is like resonate with
Mhm.
maybe your story and understand, oh, is this where I'm at?
Yeah, I mean, boy, that was fun, wasn't it? Not. So the one relationship in particular, but there was a couple, but one I mean I dated him for 4 years on and off. I mean, I must have broken it off 50 times, that cycle of uh going back. I think he probably would have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. He was addicted to alcohol and pot and sex. I mean, at first it didn't seem that way, but he was often mean, and I'd be like, oh, no one's that. I would always find excuses as to why I would let him back in, and I would set a boundary and I would completely go against it, including having his children sleep over at my house. He would lie about different things, and I kind of knew. A lot of it had to do with fear, it had to do with my own self worth. And the more I allowed him to take over what I knew wasn't right in my life, the more confused, fearful, and the lower my self worth went. And I'd have to say it wasn't great for my daughter either. So, um, there was yelling matches, and when you try to force someone to get your needs met, even though you don't know what your needs are,
Right.
you
And
think
that,
the
and that would
person
be you
yeah,
yelling to get the
yeah,
need met. Yeah.
right. You think yelling louder does it, and no, that doesn't ever work. So just one day, I don't know, I knew it was the end of that era of my life. And I just took a leap of faith. I had courage that I just knew I was done. And because part of my fear was, well, he didn't work often either, which was another thing. But I was afraid of being able to pay rent and, taking care of myself as a single mom. And so a lot of my decisions to stay really were based in fear.
I think they usually are in these type of relationships. I feel like that's such a running theme, even with the women that I find in the work that I do, that there is this fear component, and most of it is financial, right? Which makes sense. I mean, it completely makes sense, especially if we have been so dependent on the partner financially. We haven't really empowered ourselves to be able to feel like, oh, I'm okay if I can go on my own. Like, I'm okay. Because I feel like that's a lot to do with maybe some of our conditioning and our programming from the past. I know for me, I was raised in a religion that was like, women are in subjection to men, and we don't need to have higher education, right? It was really trying to suppress our ability to take care of ourselves in this world, right? And be really independent women that were able to thrive and do those things. And so I feel like that's such a component of the fear that can come up for these women. What would you say would be, I mean, obviously you lived it, right? You lived it as I had that experience too. What would you say would be for someone that is so afraid because of leaving financially? What made you finally empower you to say, you know what? I'm
Um, my health and my well-being. I'm going to have nothing financially if I don't have my health and my well-being and my mental mind. Once you make the decision for yourself, so many doors open. I mean, that's the trust, the courage, and the spiritual part of it. But because you're no longer under that nervous system stress and that fear, you start to see new opportunities. And, it's not about hyper independence either. I think cooperatively, you find, you know, the person I was dating was also hyper jealous of boys and men, but also my friends. So, having other relationships that are more supportive, whether it be family, because often in these relationships, they start to cut you off from all sorts of other supportive relationships, which you can begin to nurture again and get back. So there's just a wealth of resources and support once we let go, I guess, of that addictive um, spiral of that excitement and push and pull that goes on there with that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
completely. Obviously, you had these experiences, you started to recognize, okay, I've got to learn from these relationships. And you did, right? Because now you're embodying that work, right? You're helping people, understand conscious communication, which I think is beautiful. I know that's a really big, deep part of your work, right? And then also being able to witness that, you went through these experiences and you were able to reclaim yourself and take that and use that in a powerful way.
Hmm.
So what do you think, having that experience, now you're here, right? You did this, now you're here. What do you think in that process, how you self-sabotage maybe sometimes your growth or stopped yourself from that healing process after those relationships?
Oh, afterwards. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it's such a process, right?
Mhm.
Have, like you said, the education that we've been modeled is just so backwards. And so it's hard for us to see the patterns. And this is where I find community, and that's what we have the conscious communication course for. When you see others going through the same thing, you can see your mirrors and learn and grow so much faster. I really have they always talk about don't air your dirty laundry or whatever. Well, that's what happens when you leave it all in a pile. It goes stank and rank and gross. Um, and shame keeps us in a place of being stuck. So once we start to really see that our healing is also a collective healing and that um, we can be in touch with ourselves through others, it's just the most beautiful thing on the planet to really understand that you belong, that there's nothing
Mm.
wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I think it's a lot of the toxicity, a lot of these relationships have existed because we keep secrets, because we try to do it by ourselves, because we um, think there is something wrong with us, and there isn't. There absolutely isn't. Um,
There is not. I agree. I think, looking at it bigger picture is like just seeing that the conditioning
mhm.
that we as women, and men, right, that we experienced from this generational pieces of the trauma that, our parents kind of put onto us. And now we're trying to change the story, right? Like by being the cycle breaker, by saying, okay, well, I'm actually going to do the healing so that my children don't have to have this same experience and then they don't pass it on to their children, right? And just being able to see that this is why this work is so powerful when we can truly face it and, embrace this part of us, um, and recognize the gift. And even if in the most difficult relationship, right, even in those experiences that you had, there's still always a gift. And I think there was such a hard time, a lot of us can get really stuck in a victim mindset.
Yeah. Hmm.
We're the victim, right? It was all their fault. We're the victim. And we don't really see the role that we played in those relationships and how, well, actually, you did have a role too, right? Like you had a choice. And even though maybe, circumstances and trauma and fear kept you there, there was always like a space where you could have let yourself listen to your
Hmm.
intuition,
Yeah.
right? Instead of ignoring it or suppressing it or, you know, and so there's just like, witnessing that we have this role, knowing that there's this gift from that and that you took it, created the gift from it, right? And now you're teaching people about that, which I think is so beautiful. And that's what leads me into like, I really want to know a little bit more about your book because obviously, Soul Side Out, Universal Laws to Healing and Living Your Best Life is intriguing, right? I know that you're talking about this aspect. So tell me, like, what are the universal laws to healing? I'm sure it's much more intricate than just this conversation, but maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis of what your book is really trying to bring out for others.
Sure. I guess in a really condensed version, what I like to say is it's all about Einstein, actually, because he has a quote that I like to refer to often, and that is that energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed, and it's always doing it. And we have this funny thing. We all know about manifestation or law of abundance or all of these things, but many of us still haven't embodied what that means. So, energy is everywhere. It's our emotions, it's our thoughts. And so many of us are still trying to create or destroy different types of emotions. Oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I'll try to feel this way. I'll do positive thinking this way. Oh, if I just do this, he can change that. Oh, we're trying to think our way out of something we felt our way into through what we call trauma. I prefer to call it energetic stamps. There's these energetic impressions that we have running through our bodies, and we don't take time enough to slow down to observe them, because as we become the observer and the watcher, the energy moves on its own, and it can really give us a lot of profound insight. And that's part of my work in Soul Side Out. Is I've translated an ancient alchemical wisdom. Inside Out is really an English translation of it, about how to actually apply what Einstein says in our bodies. So we can have all these spiritual ideas, but until we embody it, which means take it into the body and start living it in our life and in our relationships, um, most of it's spiritual bypassing. So it's really about how to take universal law of energy and live it.
Mm.
Is my
Yeah,
short version of
that's
that.
perfect. That's actually so perfect. I love that. And honestly, really powerful because I can't say enough about the spiritual bypassing. I know
Mhm.
that for a very long time, but it was because I had lived so dissociated from my body. It was not connected
Yeah,
to my body,
yeah,
right? Because what trauma and abuse does is dissociate you from your body, quite simply. right? When we're living in that state of fear, like that was the safest thing that we could do was disengage, right? Disengage from the experience. And so I can't say enough about the fact that that was me thinking I was doing the healing work when I wasn't. I was still going around the emotion. I wasn't facing it
Yeah.
because my body didn't feel safe enough to actually process and feel the emotion. So there is so much, obviously pieces and components to this healing work. And sometimes I can make it sound like it's really scary, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do so much. And it sounds so overwhelming. But knowing that, like, I feel like you're always given what you can handle,
Yeah.
regardless,
Yeah.
right? Like, your brain and your body is like this beautiful part of your human intelligence that knows what you can handle, what you can't handle, like that even on your healing and journey as it unfolds, it's never going to be too much.
No, I believe that too. It never gives you more than you can handle. Anita Majani actually has a quote that's so applicable, and that is that divine messages come to you in the form that's most familiar to you and in the timing that you need. It unravels in layers. Um, and even if something is really, really hard, it just shows you the amount of tremendous strength that you have to live life to your potential. And I, circling back to your victim statement, I mean, yeah, we can all fall into a victim or a people pleaser mode. Those are our survival mechanisms, our saboteurs that we think get our needs met, but actually give us the exact opposite of what we need. Um, so yeah.
You're like, that's it. That thought is final, which I think is perfect, to be honest. Yeah, I love it. I love your little quotes, and that kind of leads me to lead into, your gift. I know that you have a free gift of an intuitive reading of your soul contracts and your relationships. Can you speak a little bit about that to the audience?
Yeah, so I have a bit of training both in the Akashic Records, which is your soul blueprints, and I overlap that with Inside Out, just to give people a bit of an idea of the pictures or images or sense that I get of sort of the next layer of your soul contract that you have to unravel to help you take the next steps to um, while becoming empowered,
Yeah.
having power in your body. We're going to embody our stuff, embody and be empowered. So that's one of the free gifts, along with my partner who has overcome a lot of his addictive tendencies as well. We have a class called Connection Through Conscious Communication, and we have a very, very powerful intro class with all the resources, along with the saboteur assessment, so you can really see where you're at. When I first took that and watched the video, I was just like, oh.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like massive, massive value. So thank you for giving that because I mean, I feel like there is so much pieces about I know I didn't know how to communicate because when we have existed in abusive relationships and never been seen or heard, like we don't even have the ability for to know what communication skills even look like.
Mm-mm.
Right. And so it's a really big piece, I think, of the journey of being able to have healthy relationships and learn how to effectively communicate what you are actually feeling and not become defensive, not, engage in behavior that's actually going to harm the relationship. So yeah, I can't speak enough about that. If anybody is in need of something like that, oh my gosh, that's huge. It's a huge component.
Yeah, and if anyone's single, it's not really the first part is not about communicating with someone else. It's about communicating to yourself.
Which is important.
About identifying, okay, what is going on in my body?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or how can I then give language to my feelings and my needs? Most people who come into the class are um, like, okay, well, what is it that you need? And the look of dumbfounded, like, I have needs.
What do you mean? I take care of everybody else's needs. Like,
Yeah.
I'm allowed to have needs. Yeah, it is so true. And that's a huge way to learn how to honor yourself, right? Yeah. And that's part of the gift, that's part of the healing journey too.
It is very
So
powerful.
thank you, Summer. Thank you for being here on the summit. Do you have any last words of wisdoms that you would like to share with the audience that you feel called to right now in this moment?
I think just what you said before is that, if we really, really take the moment to tell the truth about something, that's courage. David Hawkins says courage is telling the truth about something. We knew, you know, there's always signs that something isn't healthy for us, and we continue anyway. And so the instant we're ready to go, yeah, I knew, and to trust the next steps, all the doors will be open, and you'll be able to find the gifts in what you have experienced.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge here. I know that I learned and everybody else is going to learn from you.
Yeah, thank you for having these important summits, Brooke.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you everybody for listening in on the Thriving After Abuse Summit.